Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christine Valenza Shin coming to you from Beyond Barnard, the new program that encompasses career development, student employment, graduate school advising, fellowship advising, etc. Let's make sure people can hear me properly. So let's see, in the questions area of your box, why don't you type your name and rate your resume on a scale of 1 to 10. So either your most recent version of a resume on a scale of 1 to 10, so I can see if everyone can hear me. Ooh, good job. Naomi gives herself a 9. Susie a 1. Sang a 5. Okay, so just the first 3 people are all over the place. So for those of you who have the 9s and 10s, hopefully you'll get a couple of tips from here. And for those of you who are less happy with your resume, hopefully you'll get a lot of helpful information from here. We're going to focus in particular on highlighting your skills and accomplishments, but let's get started. And you can ask questions as we go along using the dialog box. I'll stop from time to time, although some I may push to the end. But welcome everyone. Thanks for coming back, those of you who were here 2 weeks ago, and welcome to anyone who's joining us for the first time. So let's get started. So today we're looking at resumes, and in the next 2 sessions we're going to look at cover letters and your LinkedIn profile. And these 3 items together are sort of the essential, what we call the essential job documents that you're going to use to present yourself throughout your job search process. So whether you're starting with networking for informational or job lead building, or you are starting to apply for things or currently applying for things, where our resume and then later the cover letter and LinkedIn profile through the lens of, is it effective? Is it doing what you want it to be doing? So let's take a quick poll. What is it you want it to be doing? What is the purpose of a resume? So go ahead and use the question box to fill in what you think is the goal or the purpose of a resume. Highlight achievements. Marketing material. Tell employee why you're great and why you would be great for their open position. Showcase your skills. Awesome. Great. And all of those are true. And the answer that I'm is very transactional to get an interview, right? But all of the other things that you are saying is true. Is the way you get an interview is by showcasing your skills, giving your background, giving your experience and skills, and showing what you're trying to show is that you match what they're looking for. They should bring you in for an interview. They should talk to you further over the phone or in person. So the reason we focus on that sort of, as I said, transactional idea is that you want to take this one step at a time. You don't need to write a complete work history. It's not a legal document. And somebody called it a marketing document. That's a great way of thinking of it. You are marketing yourself specifically for the job you're applying to or the company that you're meeting with. And that's what we want our focus to be on. Couple more ideas. Okay, great. So another quick question. How long does a prospective employer initially spend reading your resume? Give me your best guess. I'll wait a second to get a few answers to share. Okay, we've got several answers ranging from 30 seconds, 5 minutes, a couple minutes, 10 seconds, 45 seconds. I'm sad to say, although we're going to focus in on this and make it work for us, but I'm sad to say that the people guessing in the seconds are closest. All right. So you read different accounts of this, and I'm not sure exactly what they're basing this on, but generally, when you talk to people who are taking the first pass at that big pile of resumes or scrolling through them on a computer screen, they are spending roughly 30 to 60 seconds looking over your resume and quickly, in many cases, skimming, and then maybe focusing in on a few key points to make an initial decision about whether you're a good match for the position or not. Now, like all averages, I'm sure there are people who spend a little bit more time in the beginning with each one and people who maybe do it even faster. But that's part of what we're going to keep in mind today, because there's really two phases. You have to think of your resume in terms, when you're applying to a job, in terms of two phases. One is that quick look, and what can you do to get past that first quick look to make your resume stand out as a good match for the open position. And then that second look, when you make it into that smaller pile, that second look, that's where the details really need to hold up. And one of the things we're going to focus on today is the details is in the bullets, right? And how can you use the details of your resume to really bring home the point that you're a good match. Okay. All right. So it's all about getting your resume to the closer look stage. How do you get it past that 30-second review and into the closer look? There's a couple of things you want to think about. Generally you want to customize your resume to the job description, which, sometimes people balk at that. And I want to qualify that by saying I'm not a big fan of completely rewriting your resume every time you apply to a job, but it is strongly recommended that you tweak your resume and make some key changes in order to target it at the job description. And we'll talk about a couple of different ways to do that. You want to demonstrate you have the specific skills and experiences they're looking for. And there's a couple of great ways of doing that. We're going to talk a lot about focusing on achievements, not just your job responsibilities. You do want to apply quickly. So if it's possible to apply within 24 to 48 hours of a job being posted, that's great. That's best practices. But that needs to be counterbalanced against two things. You do want to take the time to put together a quality application. So if it's a cover letter and resume, you want to tweak your resume, you want to customize a cover letter. If there are other aspects to the application, if you're uploading something online, if they're asking for work samples, you definitely want to take the time to really work on the quality, but don't take so long that working on it, or getting into that procrastination work cycle, don't take so long that the job goes away, or they've already got 50 to 100 applicants, and you're going to make it harder for yourself. So you want to try to do that sort of speed quality balance. And then you always want to submit your application according to the rules. So if they ask for you to email a cover letter and resume to a specific address, do that. If they ask you to upload it through their system, do that. Follow the rules. But then once you have followed the rules, once you've submitted it the proper way, use networking techniques to get your resume in front of the person doing the hiring. So, it's very common to describe the open market, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, as sending resumes out into the void. And it can feel like that, but the reality is there are best practices and ways to, again, get out of the void, get out of that, the giant pile of resumes that's being considered for any one position, and into that smaller pile where you do get that closer look and have a chance of making a strong case for yourself. Okay. Great. Okay, so one of the methods we strongly recommend and teach our students, and I try and teach as any alumna who comes to me, is in order to manage this tweaking, is to have a master resume and then application resumes. The application resumes are the tweaked ones. These are the ones you've tweaked either for a specific job or if you're having a networking meeting with someone in a particular company or industry, how you've tweaked it. The idea of a master resume is this is everything but the kitchen sink resume. It's a document that lives on your computer. It's for your eyes only. You might possibly share it with me if we had an appointment, but otherwise it's your document. It has everything you've done. Some of those different things you might have taken out along the way because they're old. You may well keep them off of your current resume, but you never know when a job might draw on something that you did even a long time ago. So, so the idea is you don't have to create this from scratch. Generally, what we recommend is, you know, take the most complete version of your resume that you already have. And then as you hunt down old versions of your resumes, or as you enter new jobs, create new bullets, you just keep it all in one place so that it's there for you to draw from and adapt from. You want to label it master resume and just keep adding things. Not only new jobs and new responsibilities, but we're going to do some sample bullets in a few minutes, and I've been encouraging people to master resume document to practice writing this different kind of bullet that really hones in on achievements and accomplishments rather than just describing your job responsibilities. Additionally, I've been advising people to treat it as a rough draft. Just try and capture in regular language, regular everyday language, what it is you accomplished or achieved. And then later, if you decide to use one of those bullets in an application resume or a networking resume, then you can refine it and put it into more formal resume speak. Okay, so then application resumes you customize for each job, and again, it doesn't mean writing it from scratch. You're just going to do some tweaking to an existing document, hopefully. You want to use keywords and short phrases from the job description. I get that question a lot. You do not, unlike in college writing or other writing, you don't need to go out of your way to change words and use synonyms. In this case, whether it's a person skimming the resume quickly or an electronic eye, which is some companies are using software that does word search or some other sort of scanning technique. So whether it's a human eye or an electronic eye, they are skimming for keywords, key skills, short phrases, and so it's okay to borrow them as long as you incorporate it smoothly. I say short phrases because you don't want to take big chunks of their prose and just plunk it in. But if they call it multitasking and you have it described as managed work for 3 different administrators, or how, you know, use the term they use, and that can increase your chances of making it out of that big pile into the smaller pile. And then with all the bullets in your master resume, you may have 10, 12, even more bullets under a single job. You want to choose and order them that most closely match the job description. Remember, this resume is, you're trying to get an interview for this job. You do not have to write a comprehensive job description of what you currently are doing or past jobs. You're trying to highlight. So you want to choose the bullets that most closely match the job description. So if they need budgeting, or if they need editing, or whatever specific thing they're looking for, if that's one of the things you did, even if it wasn't the bread and butter of your job or the main way you spent your day every day, choose that bullet, highlight that bullet, put it close to the top. All right. And then with the application resumes, just an organizational tip, you want to follow an easy to remember labeling and filing system so that you can pull it up quickly. So if you're in the middle of a job search, what tends to happen is that your resumes, even though each one is customized to a specific job, they're going to clump together. So if, for instance, you could end up with sort of a nonprofit oriented resume, or resumes that are for a particular type of role in several different companies. And so you're going to end up with sort of a version of that. So if you applied for a job 2 weeks ago and then a similar job comes up 2 weeks later, you can go ahead and pull up the old one, the one that you applied 2 weeks ago, and then just tweak it a little bit, probably not too much, and then relabel it. one easy way is to use the name of the company plus your name rather than the date. I say that just based on when especially students will try and pull up a resume on their laptop when they're sitting here in the office and they've got 16 different versions, all dated different things, and it's hard for them to remember, well, which one was the August one. So something a little bit more easy to identify can help make this process more manageable so that it doesn't feel like you're writing a brand new resume every time you apply. Okay. I see a couple questions coming in, but I'm going to keep going for a moment and then circle back. Okay. Something that has become more common on resumes in all the summary of qualifications or a headline. I think it kind of comes from on the LinkedIn profile where there's a space for a summary up at the top. So it's been making its way into resumes. It is completely optional. It's a feature at the top of the resume. It can be labeled or unlabeled, but it's a way of capturing sort of key points about you and helping to frame how someone views the rest of your resume. And it's a particularly easy place to customize to the job description. So again, if you're feeling frustrated or overwhelmed by having to customize your resume, this is a pretty easy spot to answer that question. What seem to be the most important things they're looking for that match up with my skills and experience? And let me highlight those right up at the top. All right. Often I'll recommend a summary of qualification or some sort of headline if you are changing to a new field or if you have a diverse work history. We'll look at in a couple weeks when we do LinkedIn, I'll show you my LinkedIn summary. And I'm somebody who has a diverse work history. It doesn't necessarily, if you just scroll through, it doesn't necessarily all make sense. And so I use the summary on my LinkedIn profile to sort of pull that together and try and give sort of a framework to the different things I've done over the years. Okay, and a common term that's used in resumes, especially again if you're making a career shift or a position shift, is looking at transferable skills. What skills, what experiences are transferable to the new job or field, and this is again a good place to do that is up top. My favorite blog, I'll reference it a few times in the coming weeks, is Ask a Manager. It's a daily workplace advice column, but Allison Green, the person who runs it, is very, very good on all of the job search stuff. So the sections on cover letters, resumes, interviewing, salary negotiation. She just has a lot of great, very down to earth, very practical tips for the job seeker, as well as the daily bread and butter is people writing in about work dilemmas, etc. And those are often entertaining and very pragmatic and practical as well. So I included a quote from her defining a profile, and so you can take a look at that. This is a good time to note that, as in last week, with our last session, and I'll try and be a little quicker this time, I will be sending you a copy of the PowerPoint as well as a link to get to the recording of this. So don't worry about scrambling and taking a bunch of notes. Okay, let me take a quick look at questions. Should the master resume be organized chronologically? Whatever works for you. It's a document just for you. So whatever format or organization makes sense to you. It certainly could be helpful to just do. I could see doing it either chronologically or reverse chronologically if that's what makes the most sense. But one thing that happens the further we all get along in our work histories, sometimes there's some variations. And so if it makes sense to you to sort of clump them under categories, different experiences, that's fine. So, okay. All right, so I've said a couple times already to capture achievements, not just job duties. And I am going to give you a quote from Allison Green from Ask a Manager. So take a second to take that, and then we'll look at some practical, we'll do a little practice on this. And I'll sort of focus your attention on that last sentence, that last phrase. more likely to catch a hiring manager's eye. You know, one thing to keep in mind with all of this advice that you're getting from me and others, and especially me over the next couple of weeks is, you know, we do our best to keep up with best practices, and myself, because of my position working with so many alumni, I get, you know, when it comes down to it, a daily report on what's going on out there in the world of work and what's working and not working in terms of all this stuff. So the key thing is that most people aren't doing this very well. And so taking some of this advice to heart and incorporating it in a way that works for you and in a way that works for your industry is going to help you stand out from people who don't have very well focused resumes or who write very boring cover letters. That's our goal, is to sort of give you some of these best practices and best tips to help you stand out and catch the eye of the person doing the hiring. Okay, somebody's asking about education, which is going to come up soon. So let's focus in a little on this capturing achievements, and then I have some do's and don'ts and frequently asked questions coming up after this. Okay, so some questions to ask yourself to try and get at this idea of achievements. All right, and it is helpful to think of it in terms of someone who does the job adequately versus someone who does your job well. Presumably you're the person who does it well, or at least parts of it that do it well, and that's what you want to hone in. So what did you accomplish in this job that someone else might not have, or in fact didn't? You know, maybe you're doing a similar job to somebody on your team, and think about it. Another way of thinking about it is you on a bad day versus you on a good day. All right, if you were in sort of a slump and feeling burned out and we're just kind of going through the motions versus times when you were really energized and kind of on top of your game, think about those days, those periods where you did a really good job, and what was it you specifically did that was above and beyond, right? Improvements, did you take initiative? Were you did you on your own propose something or initiate something? Were you asked to take on a special project or a new initiative? And then this is a classic question, these last two questions, is to sort of tap. Sometimes it's hard for us to even articulate praise or good qualities for ourselves, or it's hard to think of it. So frame it through someone else. So if somebody asked you the question, what makes you really great? Or what do you think your boss or your coworkers, you know, past and present, would say make you good at your job? And in fact, you could actually even ask people that. Or you could ask friends, former colleagues. If you're really having trouble with this, you can ask people and say, hey, you know, I'm working on my resume trying to capture some of what makes me uniquely good at these particular tasks. What can you tell me? You know, so that can be helpful. Okay. So some language for doing this, and this is just a handful of suggestions, but sometimes people have trouble sort of picturing this or getting started. So you can, these are how you could actually write your bullets. You know, became go-to staff member for, and then fill in the blank. So think about that. Like, what on your team or in your company or in your organization, are you the person that people always came to do a certain task? Maybe it was part of your job, maybe often it's outside of your job, and that can be a helpful thing to sort of show how you're doing. Kept blank running smoothly, whatever that might be. Initiated a new system for doing something that resulted in completely revamped X system to ensure X. Resolved an inherited 4-month backlog in 3 weeks. You're quantifying a little there. Took over something for someone else, resulting in regularly garnered unsolicited praise from customers, from clients, from management for doing what. All right. So you get the idea here. You don't need to use any one of these, but the idea here is to get you thinking a little outside the box. And this might feel outside the box for some of you. Some of you may already be doing this, which is great. But again, in my experience working with people, they this can be a new way of putting things. And again, I'll make the pitch. This is a new way, and it may feel slightly uncomfortable, a little outside of the box, and not all of your bullets have to be this way. And you don't have to use the system at all, but it will be different from other candidates. It will stand out. It will be much more straightforward and really more of what the person doing the hiring is looking for, because that's what they want to know, is what will make you good at this job. And that's what you're trying to tell them. Oops. I ordered my bullets wrong. I see that this one snuck in at the top. Built reputation for, right? So that's another way to think about that. You know, what was your overall reputation? You know, how did people think of you? That type of thing. Again, you want to, the ... hopefully represents something specific. So, okay, so let's try this. Take a second to think about one or two things, either in your current job or at a former job, that made, sort of made you stand out. What did you do that was particularly effective? You could take some of this language, you could come up with some of your own. And again, you don't need to put it into resume speak. You can just write it in a normal sentence. Put that in the question box, and I'll share some of those if we've got some good ones. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to answer a couple questions. I have a question about where education goes, and I will address that in a moment. It's on one of the later slides. Somebody else wrote, I struggle with this as my background is primarily in government work that was very collaborative and nonpartisan. It's not like we had measurable outputs like a private firm would have. Yeah, that's one of the key things that tends to come up. There's a lot of advice out there, and I'm going to share it in a future slide in just a few minutes to quantify. But it doesn't have to be quantified in the way we think of as salespeople or somebody in a very technology or data-driven thing. There are a lot of ways to sort of quantify the scope of what you did and capture in different ways what you accomplished. It's not just about numbers and outputs, as you say, but it can be a little bit of a struggle. Those things are more obvious, and so that's why I'm trying to give you some language, give you some questions to ask that hopefully can capture some of this. And as with everything that we're going over in these webinars, I'm happy to work with you individually in advising appointments with your specific resume, and help you if you are struggling with this, or if you just want to run a draft of your new bullets by me. That's one of the things we can do in an appointment. And I'll give contact information at the end, but appointments are available in person, but obviously by phone and video, video calls as well, Skype, Google Hangout, etc. We're flexible in meeting alumni where they're at. Okay. All right, so let's see. Oh, I'm being asked if there's a visual. Are you not seeing the PowerPoint? There's a PowerPoint. As far as I can tell, people can see your screen. Is anybody else having an issue? Okay, great. Okay, hopefully, well, let's see. Let's get to the end of your examples, and if we're having some visual issue, I'll resolve it in a moment. But in the meantime, let's just listen to some of the examples. Brought new partners together to build an effective coalition. Nice. Became go-to staff member for creative content ideas. Nice. Organized multiple community partners into a new regional initiative that accomplished X, Y, Z. Nice. Built reputation as clear communicator of institutional goals, oral and written, to key stakeholders, board, staff, volunteers, donors, press, government. A little long, but I like the idea. Okay, so Susie is not seeing the screen that says, let's get started. What do I do next? Okay, so if anybody else isn't seeing the PowerPoint, can you let me know, or if this is a specific? Okay, it looks like everybody else is able to see it. Susie, I'm not quite sure what you should do, except maybe go back to the invite. Yeah, maybe you said you're going to reboot. Great, okay. All right, so let's move on. And actually, let me check my time and see how we're doing. Okay, we're 12:30, we're moving along pretty well. Okay, some do's and don'ts on resumes. So sticking to a basic, clear format that makes it easy to glean information with minimal effort, that's all about that first look. So anything you do that's inconsistent is going to sort of hold up their eye and cause frustration. So this means, you need to, use the same font throughout, although you could use a slightly different font for your name or for your contact information, but you don't want to have multiple fonts. You want to be consistent about, if you italicize the title in one entry, you need to italicize your title in every entry. If you lead with the company and then the title for one, you have to lead with the company and then the title for everything. So follow that pattern. You have to think of it from, and from the point of view of somebody who's not familiar with it, reading through quickly. And let me just take a sip of water. And what can be helpful with this, because if you've been staring at this like any document for a while, you can lose sight of this, is to hand a draft of it to somebody or send it to somebody to look at and take a fresh look at and point out anything that might be inconsistent. Okay. You're doing highlights, you're not doing your entire work history. And so if it's a resume, not a CV, which is a different animal, you want to try and get it to a 1 or 2 page document. We'll talk about that issue in a moment. Accomplishments and skills we talked about, achievement versus task focused. Active verbs, there's exceptions to this, but you want especially your first few bullets to be direct active verbs as opposed to responsible for, assisted with, things like that. You try and edit those out, or you try and put them a little further down. You want the first impression, the first full bullets, to be you in action, plan and execute, analyzed, etc. You want to quantify and identify scope where possible. If there's numbers, give them. But again, your job may not lend yourself to numbers, but wherever you can work it in. Manage a team of 9 sales reps, edited a weekly e-newsletter with a circulation of 10,000. Again, you might not have those facts and figures at your hand. You could try and come up with some of them. But how often did something happen? How frequently, how many people, customers, clients, vendors are you dealing with? What's your workload? How can you convey that in a way that gives a sense of what you are actually doing? Okay. Don't. All right. Try to avoid vague terms. The unconventional format or graphics or colored paper or color in general. Generally speaking, most hiring managers in most industries want straightforward, black and white, typical font, not an unusual font. They don't need a fancy layout. All right. The exception to this is if you are applying for jobs in a creative field or at innovative companies or organizations. You could definitely try this. There are templates available on I think it's Pinterest and Etsy and other sites like that, where you can pay $20 or less for a resume template. It can be worth experimenting with, but again, if you're applying in typical fields, whether corporate or nonprofit, most people want a straightforward resume in a format that they're familiar, because again, they're looking quickly, trying to figure out, are you worth talking to? Are you a good potential fit for this? And so they don't want to be distracted by a bunch of other, by bells and whistles. All right. So yeah, there are exceptions. And again, I'm happy to, talk about your individual situation. So, unless you're directly asked, you don't. So I know, I think on government resumes, sometimes they ask for things like this. Other types of resumes sometimes ask for why you left a job or how much you made, references. All of those you don't need to include. You want to just stick to what they're looking for in that initial application, and you can provide all of that other information later. Although I should make a point about salary information. It is now illegal in Massachusetts, New York, and a number of other states to be asked about your prior salary history. So if you were to be asked that during an application process or an interview, they can ask you what your salary requirements are, but they cannot ask you for, they're not supposed to ask you for past salary information. We'll talk about that more towards the end of our series when we talk about salary negotiation. Number 4 is really helpful for if you've been out of the workforce for a while. I work with a lot of alumni who took time out of the workforce to raise children or care for family members, or do have some other or could even have been ill themselves. So they have a gap. You don't need to. Again, this isn't an official record of your work, so you don't have to say something was full or part-time. You don't even have to distinguish whether, let's say you did an internship. You don't have to say whether it was paid or unpaid. If you've got a volunteer role, you don't have to label it as volunteer. You may want to label it as volunteer, but you don't necessarily have to. And as I said, this can help keep current activities, even if you're not employed full-time at the moment. I'd say number 5 sometimes comes up with either younger alumni or people with a varied job history. Is they'll sort of show everything. The advice is the opposite. You need to be strategically focused for the position you're applying to. It doesn't mean you can't have. You could in fact be open to anything, but that's information you keep to yourself and maybe close friends and family. Everybody else gets the message that your focus is on getting a job in this company, this field, whoever it is you're talking to. So whether you're sending it in for a job or you're in a networking situation, you want to appear focused on that company, that field. All right. And then just a little tip, this pops up every once in a while. You just don't want to use your current employer's contact information when you're looking for a job. You either use a personal email, or some people create what I call sort of a personal professional email that they sort of manage, that they'll use as their contact information. Okay, so a couple questions. Would you be willing to share the templates you recommended most highly? I'm working off. Okay. I don't, yeah, I can send you a link to a page on Pinterest, but not necessarily. Templates in general, I would say not to use unless you would find it helpful, but I can give you a couple of ideas. What's the best format for dates? My job experience goes back to substantive work. I'm going to talk about the date issue in a moment. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so those are some don'ts and some frequently asked questions. Let's talk about a couple of those. This came up earlier. Lead with education or experience? Okay. So the question you want to ask yourself is it depends. So you can lead with education or you could lead with experience. Generally, those are one of the first 2 sections. So you want to ask, what is most directly related to the job you're applying for? So if something you did in your education, or if your major directly correlates to something you're applying to, or if you are applying to graduate school, or if you are applying to a higher education or other education job, it may be that you want to apply for it. But in most cases, you're going to lead with experience, especially if you're applying for something within your same field. The thing they want to see first is, what are you doing now, or what did you do most recently that correlates with what we're looking for? All right. Recent graduates generally often will lead with education. So if you just graduated from Barnard, or if you've recently completed a graduate program, especially if you're looking for work in that field, you would lead with that. That's your, sort of most recent significant accomplishment. But don't worry, the person who asked the question before is worried that somebody's not going to find their education at the bottom of a second page, and they always will. It's just one of those things where people there's a natural curiosity among people in general and employers in particular, where did you go to school? So they will seek it out. So don't worry, especially sometimes young alumni don't want to drop it down even after they've had a very relevant job or two, but they'll find that you've gone to Barnard and Columbia. The flip of that, of course, is when you are graduating from college or finishing a graduate program, that might be your most significant accomplishment. The Barnard name, the Columbia name, it's going to carry some weight. And so if you have either not a lot of work experience or sort of varied internship and college job experience, that's the argument for why recent grads should in fact lead with their education. Okay. Do you list the title or the company first? So the general rule of thumb is, which is more impressive? Do your title sound more impressive, or do the companies you worked for sound most impressive, especially in your most recent jobs? But once you pick, you have to be consistent. Okay, so if you had an internship at NBC and you want to lead with NBC, then by all means do that. But now even if a particular job is at a company that's less well known, you still need to lead with a company. You just need to be consistent. Okay. And then there's the question of hiding your age or not. This applies mostly to, well, it's funny. I would have said, it applies to mid to late career alumni, but it seems to be creepy. The advice out there is creeping earlier and earlier. So people will say, if you're over 30 or over 35, don't let them know how old you are. And the reality is that there is ageism. There's ageism, especially on the open market, where, again, pile of resumes and they're looking for people who fit. There absolutely can be ageism at any stage of the job process. And so it has become fair. There's varying advice out there, but I have noticed over the last 5 years or so that the trend, it has become more common for people to remove dates of graduation and to leave off some of their early experience if they can. So basically, for those of you who haven't thought about this, the way you hide your age on a resume is to take off your dates of graduation, especially college. And then if you lop off the first 5 to 10 years of experience and start with the job you held, list as your, oldest job, the one that you had 10 years after graduation, then basically you're lopping, off anywhere from 5 to 10 years off your age, if somebody's sort of looking to figure it out. Again, this has become so common that I think that most people are not looking through it with a fine-tooth comb trying to figure it out. And it may be that you don't want to lop off the first 5 to 10 years because you did some amazing things. So it's pretty common, I would say. What can I make a guess? Like from the age of 35 on, to not put your year of graduation from college or even graduate school, depending on when that was. But whatever job you list all jobs that you list as experience have to have a date on them. You can't put the dates on the most recent ones and then leave the dates off the older ones. If you're sharing that job and that experience, you need to give that information. That's going to raise a red flag if some things have dates and some things don't. It's just going to cause confusion and or suspicion that you're trying to hide your age, and so it could backfire. Okay. All right, let's see. I think we have some questions. Led successful grassroots initiatives as a volunteer without a title. Is it okay to give myself a title? Yeah, you can give yourself a title for things like that, as long as it's not going to be contradicted by somebody at that organization, if it still exists and if you put them down as a reference or something. So, so again, if you're using them as a reference, or if somebody may be doing, if you get to the stage where somebody's doing a background check or an employment check of your work history, you might want to give a heads up to somebody at the organization to say, hey, I put myself down as organizer and leader. Are you cool with that? So that's a way of handling that. Okay, more FAQs, just a few more things that just come up. So the one page or two, this has been changing as well. It used to be, the advice used to be one page for, say, when you've just graduated and for the first 5 to 7 years of your career, and at that point you can go to 2 pages. Because so many people are looking at resumes online, or on their computers, it's become less of an issue. And so really the only people who are advised to really strictly to stay to one page are brand new graduates. There still is a bias against a brand new graduate producing a 2-page resume. Even if you have enough to fill 2 pages, and some of you do. I mean, I talked to, some young alumni, some seniors. I mean, they've done a bunch of different things, led organizations and done internships and had campus jobs, and they could fill 2 pages, but the bias is cut it down, tell me what I need to know. I don't need to know everything you've accomplished. I need to know what you've done that makes you a good match for this job. And a recent college graduate should be able to get that done in 1 page. So that's sort of the common wisdom. Once you've had, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 3 substantive jobs or other professional experiences, if you can, if you have enough relevant content, if to tell your story you need that 2nd page, then you can go to the 2nd page and it shouldn't have a huge impact. There may be people out there with pet peeves about this. You can never control for how everyone's going to react, but and I'm happy to weigh in on whether I personally think you've got enough to sort of justify that 2nd page. But I run into alumni who have a ton of experience and think they have to stick to 1 page, and it's like, no, you've got a lot, and people will stick with you through 2 pages as long as it's relevant and compelling. It has become common to just put email and phone number. I've noticed lately some people are just putting their city and state. That's helpful. You might want to put your city and state if you it's completely optional. A lot of people just put email and phone number, sometimes a link to their LinkedIn profile. But it started sort of as a privacy thing. And then there is such a thing as address prejudice, which can either center around the perceived commute, or if you're applying out of state, you might get rejected automatically if they see that you live in New York, even if you're completely willing to move to LA. And then there also can be address prejudice against, I don't know, if you live in somewhere super affluent or if you're suburban, and there can be prejudices that get attached to it. It's silly, but it's just how things work. And then PDF or Word document, you can see the advice here. Depends on what format you're being asked. All right. I've talked sort of obliquely about applicant tracking systems. These are when you, most commonly when you upload from you're uploading your resume to an employer's website. That often, but not always, means they use an applicant tracking system, which is just a software that sometimes it involves word search screening, sometimes skill screening, sometimes it's just how they keep track of everybody's documents. So, okay. All right, just some final thoughts as we wrap up here. You definitely, need to update your resume if you are starting a new job search, thinking about a career change or networking. And it's going to take a little time to sort of revamp it and get your application and networking resumes to a place you want them to be. Yeah, maybe not. For some people, they've got a good resume and all they need to do is add some of their more recent stuff and they're good to go. Other people need to do a more serious revamping, think about how they want to rearrange information, etc. And so it can take a little bit of time, but once you are actively job searching and applying to things and meeting with people, it should get easier, which is great, because if it gets faster and easier, it means you can spend more time on the networking side of things, which is the true antidote to the black hole that we talked about before. Okay. Just a few things, next steps. So as I've mentioned, we've got a couple, so we're basically going straight through for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, wow, 7. We're doing 7 more Wednesdays. So again, pop in for the things that are most relevant, or do the whole series, whatever works for you. If you would like to make an appointment, you can do that online through Handshake. If you have not been on you may not have an account, and so you first need to ask for an account, and then once your account is approved, you can make an appointment. Or if you want to skip that and call the office directly to make an appointment, you can do that. We're fairly busy at the moment, and my very dear and valuable colleague Talia is leaving tomorrow to take a job down in Georgetown. So she's part of our advising team, and so things are going to be pretty busy the next couple weeks, so be patient. And as I said last time, if you have something truly time sensitive, an interview or a negotiation that's pending, you can shoot me an email. Otherwise, don't email me, go through the system, either online or the telephone to make an appointment. So thank you. Any additional questions? I know some people had to hop off at the 12:45 mark, but I will go back. Okay. Are there any symbols that can't be processed by the applicant tracking system? That's a good question. I did a webinar actually for career counselors on applicant tracking systems. It was about a year ago. I should probably do another one because these things change a lot. But one of the problems is there are multiple applicant tracking system vendors out there, and there's no one that kind of dominates the market as far as I know. So it really varies. Some of them have trouble reading some things. But I would, in general, if you're uploading something to a system, I would keep it, sort of as simple and standard as possible. So use square or round bullets, not the fancy ones with diamonds and petals and things like that. And use a simple formatting. Use a Word or similar, document that you've converted into. Well, actually, for an applicant tracking system, you want to upload the Word. Easier for them to read. So, but that's actually a good question to Google. And in fact, I'll probably Google that question later for my own curiosity. You might want to Google that and see if you can glean some current information. So, but generally speaking, if you think there's a chance they're using an applicant tracking system, just keep your format simple. Don't do anything fancy. My graduate degree in psychiatry and religion was substantive, but it's possibly distracting, and it's unclear whether it's related to my current career search. Should I lop? I'm ABD, that's all but dissertation. Yeah, probably you should, but because yeah, it can be distracting, and also since it's ABD, yeah. Oh, I see, MDiv. Oh, okay. So you earned the master's. Okay. That, I probably have to talk to you individually about that, but yes, you can even leave off graduate school if it's not relevant. It's not an automatic go-to, but yeah. So there's ways of handling that. So yeah, it's hard to give a yes or no to that. All right, this is a thing. Okay, trying to recall, what was your answer to the question, read collaborative government work? Oh, basically what I was saying is that if it was collaborative and that's what the job you're applying to is valuing, if they list that in the job description, then absolutely figure out a way to write a bullet that captures what you collaborated on, what makes you a good collaborator, what made that collaboration effective. Don't worry that you don't have sales figures or data, or budget numbers at your fingertips. That's not the only way to quantify or to capture an achievement. So, so I think my answer to that was to look back at those slides on how you quantify accomplishments and achievements. Okay. Thank you. Will you be sending the PowerPoint? Yes, I will. I will try. I cannot guarantee I'll get it out to you today, but I hope to send the PowerPoint and the recording Wednesday by the end of the week. Okay. I serve on a dozen boards. Do the dates matter? I'd say no. As long as they're listed, if you're going to have a separate list, like in a separate section like board service or volunteer service, you could probably list them without dates as long as you don't put dates on any of them. But it also, rather than lopping off the dates, you might want to be more selective about which boards you put in the list. So put just 3 or 4 of the most relevant, or sort of whatever criteria is, narrow it down to 3 or 4, and do put the dates for those. Maybe different ways of handling it, but no, you don't absolutely have to put dates down. It's not the same as jobs. So okay. All right, anything else? Well, for those of you who are still hanging in and sticking, still on the line, thank you very much for joining us. And I will, quote unquote, see you next Wednesday if you're interested. And if not, we'll see you whenever. Thanks, everybody.